Welcome back to the channel, Gator Nation, and really hoops fans everywhere. I'm Allie Peak, and tonight we are breaking down an absolute thriller of a game from the Sweet 16 of the NCAA Tournament, Florida versus Maryland. And this game, y'all, really had everything. Clutch plays, big-time performances, and of course, a ticket to the Elite Eight was on the line. So let's get into it. Coming into this one, the number one seeded Florida Gators were riding high after knocking off two-time defending champ UConn in the round of 32, which, we talked about that game on this channel a lot during the week. And, it was a close one. And it was one that I think was in jeopardy at some points. And Gator fans were maybe a little concerned, but we tried to reassure you guys that UConn is just such a tough game, particularly to get that early in the tournament. And sometimes getting battle tested is important. And I think that that'll be something that comes into play later on down the road for the Gators. They played Maryland, of course, who was fresh off that buzzer beater against Colorado State, thanks to freshman phenom Derek Queen. This game did not disappoint, and neither did Derek Queen, but we'll talk about him in a little bit. Let's start with the first half. Florida came out strong, and one of the things that we told you was going to be important in this game was their depth, and it was. Dominating the glass up early. Florida was up 21-10 in rebounds by halftime. That was one of the keys to this game, was that Florida was going to need to out-rebound Maryland. They did take care of business in that department. Senior guard Walter Clayton Jr. was cooking, dropping 12 points, including a couple of really beautiful threes, despite some shaky shooting at 3 of 8. But it wasn't all smooth sailing for the Gators in the first half, was it, guys? I'm sure you were having a heart attack just as much as I was. They turned the ball over 13 times in the first half and racked up 11 fouls. That kind of sloppy play kept Maryland in it. Florida went into halftime up. The Gators are really good when they go into halftime up. But there really should have been no question about who was going to win this game going into halftime had Florida just taken better care of the basketball. Gillespie was a spark plug for Maryland in the first half, scored 13 points. And, Derek Queen, I already mentioned him once tonight. He was just a force inside. We will drop an Elite Eight preview with Neil Blackman tomorrow, but for even more UF and NCAA tournament coverage, go check out BetUS TV. They've got great coverage, and I'm excited to see how big of a favorite UF is tomorrow when I wake up. Make sure you're following BetUS TV on social media. We appreciate them for their support. At the break, Florida clung to a razor-thin 40-38 lead. And Florida fans were pretty stressed going into halftime, not just because we were only up by 2 and turning the ball over a lot and in foul trouble already, but because Alex Condon had gone down earlier in the first half. He rolled his ankle. It was kind of a weird thing. I don't know if he stepped on somebody while they were down. It kind of just looked like he rolled his own ankle and no one was even near him, but he's hopping to the sidelines. It's pretty dramatic. They take him directly into the locker room, and then we hear that they're taking precautionary x-rays. And so, I don't know what you guys were thinking, but I was thinking there was a great chance we weren't going to see Condon for the rest of the game. And, that's a little stressful, right? But the good news is Florida's got a lot of depth, and it helped us. Second half, pure March Madness magic. Florida turned up the heat, and their bench stepped up big time. I think that was the story of this game. Florida's bench, Florida's depth. Denzel Aberdeen came off the pine, just lit it up, hitting a clutch 3 to stretch the lead to double digits midway through the second half. Elijah Martin was a bulldog. He's been really good the last few games for the Gators. He finished with a double-double. Let's say 14 points, 10 boards. Guys, come on. He was bullying his way to the rim against a Maryland defense that really honestly couldn't quite figure out how to defend him. But Maryland fought back. Derek Queen, mentioned him already now 2 or 3 times in this episode, but he was unstoppable. And truly, he gets a little better shooting those threes. This is exactly what the announcers were saying during this game. I don't know how you defend him if that happens, but he finished with a game high 27 points. Julian Reese added some muscle in the paint. With about 8 minutes left, Florida pushed it to 70 to 56, and you could kind of feel the momentum swinging. Listen, I'm not one that likes to blame things on officiating either, but man, it kind of felt at times like Florida was not only playing Maryland, but was playing the officiating crew as well, right? It felt like Florida was going to get called for everything. It was kind of hard to watch at times. If you follow me on social media, you'll know that I was, not particularly calm at moments. I felt like this game was very one-sided. And, the good news is for the Gators, they were good enough to completely overcome it. But Maryland is a good team and they weren't going quietly. They went up on an 8-0 run late, cut it to single digits, and that Chase Center was buzzing. Maryland's defense clamped down, forcing UF into some tough spots. With 2 minutes to go, though, it was a 16-point game. And Todd Golden kept his starters in. Classic Gator grit, right? He wanted those guys to get those points. In the end, Florida's depth and firepower were just too much. UF cleaned up their turnovers in the second half, and I feel like that was really important. That was probably Golden's message in the locker room was, guys, what are we doing? We have to take care of this basketball. They dominated the boards the entire game, 38-19 on rebounds, and 6 players hit double figures. All right, balance, right? We've had multiple guests this week tell us that Florida's depth is its secret weapon, and I think that we saw that tonight. Florida had a lot of standouts in this game. Walter Clayton Jr. finished with 13 points. Another night where he hit big shots and led just led the charge. Thomas Haug and Ruben Chinyulu held it down in the front court, especially when Condon was on the bench and even when he was, in the tunnel trying to loosen that ankle up. And the bench production was just the X factor. For Maryland, Derek Queen's 27 points showed why he is a lottery pick in the making, but they couldn't match Florida's relentless pace. The Gators' effective field goal percentage hit was 70.2%. That is ridiculous against a top 10 Ken Pom defense like Maryland's. So now what happens, right? Florida rolls into the Elite Eight. They're going to either take on Texas Tech or Arkansas. That game is currently going on right now, so we should know very soon who the Gators are going to play. But I think the story of the night really is the bench, 29-3. The Gator reserves outscored Maryland's bench. Think about that. 29-3. That is staggering. That's the kind of depth that marks a championship caliber team. Fresh legs making big plays when it matters most. And the Gators are looking good right now. With this win, Florida advances to its first Elite Eight since 2017 and its 6th appearance since 2011. Like I said, they'll take out the winner of Arkansas, Texas Tech. Both teams pose unique challenges, I think, but with the way Florida's playing right now, they are going to be a tough out for anyone. Florida obviously pretty familiar with Arkansas playing in the SEC. So Gator Nation, get ready. This team is just one win away from a trip to the Final Four. If tonight's performance is any indication, I think they are peaking, no pun intended, at the perfect time. Last but not least, we got a huge shout out to give. We had a short out today, and I asked you guys to comment what you were predicting the score to be on the video. And, some of you threw the score up just a few minutes ago after the game was over. But Scott9509 guessed the final score 3 hours ago. He predicted it was going to be 87-71. So big shout out to Scott9509. And stay tuned because we'll do that again going into the Elite Eight game. Stay with us for more coverage as Florida continues its March Madness run. As always, go Gators.